If you have half a brain, you're probably skeptical about AI and the impact of it on your company. And if you're sick of the hype, you're not alone. But it's important that you consider it because I know you've got jobs to run, crews to manage, clients to keep happy. And the last thing you need is another shiny object that eats up your time and delivers nothing. But what if AI could actually save your time? In this episode of Construction Genius, I sit down with Luca Dellanna, and he's a consultant and an author and an expert in practical AI adoption. AI can sharpen your proposals, cut down on rework, and help your team win more work without spending a ton of money or overhauling your systems. Here are 3 specific things that we're going to cover in today's episode. Number 1, how tools like ChatGPT can act as a second set of eyes to improve proposals and planning before your clients or crews find the mistakes. How to run AI pre-mortems that catch potential project failures before they happen, and why not using AI wisely could actually put you at a disadvantage as competitors adopt it to drive down costs and improve execution. Let's dive right in to a conversation on AI without the BS with my guest, Luca Dellanna. Let's go. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Luca, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
I'm having you on because you published an article, The Simpler Way to Get Your Team to Use AI. What would you say to a construction executive who says, we don't have time to play around with ChatGPT, we're already slammed managing jobs and people?
Well, I would say that if your job is going perfect and everything is super efficient, then of course there is no need to change everything, at least right now, even though there might be in the future, because if other companies are using AI and they're managing to lower their cost, then at some point you might feel some competitive pressure. But if the reason why you don't have time is because you are spending time on doing rework, correcting mistakes, resolving conflicts, and so on, then AI might help you save time. Because for me, one of the biggest advantages of using AI in a particular way, we will talk about it later, is to reduce the number of mistakes of things we forgot about or blind spots so that you have less rework, less unforeseen incidents, less conflict. And so you will see that it's very likely that you actually gain time by using AI in a wise way.
It's interesting. I know that many people who are listening to this are getting bombarded at the moment with various ways of using AI. Some of those ways are tremendously expensive. They're related to software packages that to get them and to install them takes a lot of hassle and headache. It can be also, there's a lot of discussion around robotics as it relates to AI and how that's going to impact the construction industry. But you highlight that there is a complex and then a simple way to integrate AI into an organization. For construction companies, why do you think the simpler approach, giving access to general purpose AI tools, is so often overlooked?
Yeah, so for me, the complex approach means some very expensive and deep integration into the databases or softwares that you're already using. And that can be quite effective, but the problem is that it's very complex and expensive and takes time. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just complex. And then the simplest way instead is that you give access to key workers to some general purpose AI, like it could be ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, and you train a little bit your workers to use the general purpose AI to plan better and to reduce mistakes and misunderstandings. For me, it's just very simple. It's a very low-hanging fruit that can already bring dramatic improvements.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so in a construction company, basically what you got to do is you got to win work through bidding the work, then you plan the work that you're going to build, then you build the work, and then you've got to get paid, right? So you've got to chase the money. So bid work, plan work, build work, get paid. As you're looking at these general purpose AI tools, where would be the first place in those 4 areas to begin to think about using them to reduce mistakes and make things a little more efficient?
So the two areas which I see the most ripe, writing the proposals and planning the job. Because these are the areas in which it's very easy to have a blind spot or to miss something important. Or there could be an easier way of doing things. You and the AI can help with that. And then the second thing is that those areas, you are never the only person involved. When you write the proposal, you're writing the proposal, but then what matters really is what the client reads and what the client understands and what the client wants and how well your proposal is matching it. And so, for example, one thing you can do with general purpose AI is to use it as a sounding board and ask questions such as, imagine that you are the person reading this. What questions do you have? What's unclear? What doubts do you have? What problems do you see? And of course, can you do it yourself? Yes, you can, but maybe you will forget something important. Can you do it with a very experienced colleague? Yes, if you have a super experienced colleague within your company that can give a second pair of eyes and so on, also good. But in addition to that, you can have a third pair of eyes, which is quite cheap, very extremely fast, and can save you with one or two comments, can help you dramatically improve your proposal or your planning process. And for me, that's a very good use of AI.
So it's interesting, right? Because we're getting into the realm here of how to use it on a practical basis. And many people are playing with AI. I use it every single day. And I know that it's the quality of the prompts that you use that determines much of the output that you get.
Yes.
So how would you recommend that someone goes about creating those quality prompts?
Yeah, so you mentioned something super important. Like, we already see this with people, but also with AI is the same. The quality of the delegation prompt that we give determines the output that we get. A mistake that I see so many managers doing with people is that they spend too little time delegating, and maybe having spent a couple of minutes more just to bring a bit more clarity about the purpose, the type of success you want to achieve, and so on, could dramatically help the employee or the AI to provide better answers. And for me, one of the things I do when I'm using AI in my own work is I simply try to make the prompt double as lengthy as I would think intuitively to make. And just this simple tip, usually it's so makes me think about, makes me add details which are extremely useful. And the second thing you can help the AI is to explain what are your, let's call it, success metrics. I make an example, like just yesterday I was planning a business trip and AI saved me $700. And the way it saved me is simply I said, look, I will have to visit clients in Omaha and in San Francisco. What's a good way to arrange the travel to save money?
Right.
And then I added a couple of hints. I told AI how much I'm willing to save on money versus maybe time, like what's the good trade-off for me. And then AI suggested, if you fly from Torino to Denver instead of going to Boston, New York, or Chicago to go to Omaha, you will probably find a better ticket. And I just put it, and 30 minutes more, and it saves me $700. So this was an example of how just adding a success metric, so telling AI what I care about, I use it with presentations. So nowadays, I'm definitely not asking AI to write the presentations for me,
Right.
because that's what I am paid for.
Yep.
That's where I add value. But when I have the presentation, I give it to AI and I ask for feedback. I ask what's unclear. And if I just ask that, it comes up with some fairly generic answers. But if I go and spend a little bit, 30, 60 seconds more saying what type of audience it is, what type of doubts would add the most what type of questions would add the most value, or what's the outcome I want. So for example, I want the audience that at the end of the presentation, they are convinced that if they hire me, it will be great. Or I want the audience that after the presentation, they go back to their job and they do this one thing. If I tell the purpose, then I get so much better recommendations.
Hey, quick break to talk about my course, The Shift. Why take the shift? Well, because you were a project builder and now you're a people leader, whether you own your own construction company or whether you're in leadership. And building people and leading teams is way different than building a construction project. In construction, it's black and white, it's the specs, but people, they're gray. There are many, many, many different shades of gray, right? So what I want you to do is go out to the shift.constructiongenius.com and check out my course. It's 5 modules. It's all online. It's 100% guaranteed. And so what that means is if you take the course and you don't get tremendous benefit from it, you just send me an email and I give you your money back. No questions asked. But I know that you're going to tremendously enjoy the course because it's practical, it's straightforward. It's all about how to manage your time more effectively, how to build effective teams, how to run effective meetings, how to communicate effectively, how to manage yourself. It's vital that you master all of these areas if you're going to be successful as a leader. And the shift is going to take you from just not knowing how to be an effective leader to mastering leadership. So go out to the shift.constructiongenius.com, check out everything on the page that tells you about the course, the testimonials from folks who've taken the shift, and then sign yourself up and the people in your organization. I promise you, you will benefit tremendously from the course. Yeah, so this is key right here. So when we're writing proposals and if we want to use AI for feedback, what I would recommend that the audience does is that they really try and put themselves in the shoes of the person that they're presenting the proposal to. And what is it that that person is looking for from the proposal? And if you can describe that not only from an objective perspective, but also from a emotional, subjective perspective, and you tell that you use the words that are related to that. So for instance, if someone's going to buy a construction project from you, hire you to build for them, they want to feel safe. They want to feel that you're not going to walk off the job and leave them with an unfinished project. Those kinds of emotional things. If you put that into the prompt and you ask them to ask the AI to evaluate your proposal from that perspective, the response you're going to get back is going to be tremendously interesting for you and could really help you to change your proposal. Is that the angle that you're looking at there?
Fantastically said. Yes.
Okay, so one of the concerns I know that people are thinking is they're saying, Luca, wait a minute here. I'm bidding on this project. I've got proprietary information in this proposal. I ain't uploading that to ChatGPT because what are they going to do with that? Is that a huge issue, or how can someone handle that?
Well, I think it's an issue depending on the vendor. Like there are many companies that are providing AI and there are some which are more serious about privacy than others.
Yeah.
I would not necessarily trust any AI, but for example, if Google or Microsoft, they tell me, that I am paying for, like I have a business or an enterprise plan with them, and they are guaranteeing that it's safe, that they keep the data private and they don't use it to train it, I will trust, especially because anyway, I'm already using their email products.
Yes.
I'm already using Outlook or in Gmail I have Gmail Workspace Business. And so like, it wouldn't necessarily make sense to trust them with the email, which is even more sensitive, and not with AI.
Yeah, so that's the thing is, now there is an advantage, and I think this is a big thing here, is if you're going to use these general AI products such as ChatGPT or Gemini, paying for even the $20 a month one, why is that a benefit over using the free version?
Yeah, exactly. Like usually for most products, you have the free version, which they can use the data for training, and they pay the business version in which usually they offer privacy guarantees. So this is one important thing. Of course, the alternative would be to anonymize the data that you are sending to the AI, but it's a bit risky, it's a bit error prone. Sometimes the value of the IP is not in the exact data that you can anonymize, but it's maybe in the structure or in the generic thing that you're offering. So it's a bit tricky.
One of the great case usages of AI is in preempting failure. And so how can a construction project manager use AI to do a pre-mortem prior to starting a project?
Yeah, so for me, this is one of the most important things is always, before any project, before any meeting, before any proposal, is to ask yourself, imagine that I do it and I do it well, and yet it fails.
Yeah.
What could be the most likely reason it fails? And you can also go specific by asking this question for each failure mode. So imagine that we do a good plan. So imagine that we use this plan and we execute on the plan, and despite that, we end up over budget. What could have been the most likely reason? Yep. Or imagine that we execute on the plan and despite that, we end up behind schedule. Or the client is unhappy. What could be the most likely reason? So this is an exercise that AI or non-AI, I will do before each project, before each client proposal, and before each important meeting. And then, of course, if you have AI, it's a great exercise to do with AI, and they can usually provide some great answers.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Again, we come back to the quality of the prompts, and I think perhaps people would be a little more comfortable using AI in this scenario because the issues that people come across in projects tend to be kind of generic in nature. They have to do with productivity, they have to do with safety, they have to do with cost. And what you should be doing is, as you come to the end of a project and you do a post-mortem on the project and you make a list of the things that went right, went wrong, you can then create a prompt from the post-mortem that you can then use in the pre-mortem as you're going into the project to really begin to investigate ways that the project may go south, ways that you can improve the execution of the project as you're getting going. Is that kind of the right way of looking at it?
Yes. Just as before you mentioned the idea of having a library of prompts, you also want to have a very good library of failures or library of failure mode.
Yes.
I know some people, they call it the graveyard. It's a fantastic way that then you can use as a checklist. Like, these are all the ways in which similar projects failed in the past. Can we say with relative certainty that our project will not fail in any of those ways? Or if not, what do we have to do about it? Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's interesting. One of the great sources of angst with people is this idea of AI replacing workers. And obviously, I think it's going to happen to one degree or another. And as information is more and more democratized, knowledge is democratized, then the value of that information to a certain extent, it becomes lowered. But the way that you use the information and the insights that each individual brings becomes much more valuable. So what do you say to people in terms of where AI is not really going to be used to replace workers, but to improve their judgment and reliability?
Yeah, exactly. So for me, AI, like, there are very few exceptions. Like, I think the translators will be sadly one of the fewer classes of jobs that relatively likely of being replaced. But I think that for most other jobs...
Did you say
AI,
the translators?
Yes, translators.
What do you mean by the translators?
Well, translating is something that the AI can do quite well.
You mean language translation?
Yes, language translation.
Okay, yeah. Okay, excellent. Yeah.
And instead, I think that for most other workers, AI is just a tool. So it won't be the tool by itself that will replace the workers.
Yep.
The problem for the worker will be if they do not learn how to use the new tool.
Yep.
And this happened with all tools, like when they started inventing, the drilling machine. If your job before was doing the drilling by hand and now you do it with the machine, you keep the job. If you don't learn to use the drilling machine, you will be replaced. And so for me, that's why it's just so important to learn how to use AI and to see it. It's definitely not AI the threat. The threat is if everyone else uses AI and you don't.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. You talk about this idea of the power of hypotheticals for training people. Can you please define what you mean by hypotheticals, and how could a construction leader use this method to build their team's ability to spot the errors that AI comes up with?
Yeah. So whenever you're training a new team or a new employee, probably the best use of 30 minutes to make the worker gain even years of experience, I'm probably not exaggerating, is to book 30 minutes and do a hypothetical, which is a simple exercise that goes like this. You tell them in 30 seconds a common situation or choice that they will face at some point during their job over the next months. Yep. It could be something, what do you do if the tool breaks? What do you do if your colleague makes this kind of mistake? What do you do if the client is unreasonable? What do you do if we lack the supply materials today?
Yes. Yep.
And you ask them what they will do.
Yes.
And then they say what they will do, and then you give them feedback. You either say, fantastic idea, because that wouldn't work because of this reason. And you keep doing this over 30 minutes, you cover 10, 15 situations, and it's fantastic. Within 30 minutes, you passed months, if not years of experience. And you prevent that all of these situations, which they would encounter one way or another over the next couple of years, when it happens, they will know what to do, instead of either resulting in paralysis or costly mistakes or delay.
So then how does that hypothetical framework and exercise relate to spotting the errors that AI does come up with from time to time? Because this is one of the main concerns, right? First, I don't want to share my information. Second, how do I know that what they're telling me is correct? So how does that help with that piece of it?
Yeah, so you make hypotheticals regarding the use of AI. So for example, you say, imagine that you give, you submit your proposal to AI to get some feedback.
Yep.
And AI gives you some wrong information, for example, about the pricing. It tells you that your proposal is, I don't know, too expensive when it's actually not. Random thing.
Right.
And then the worker, if it's the first time that you do this exercise, very often they will not know, or they say something, and then you tell them what you would have wanted their behavior to be. So for example, you can say something along the lines of, we only use AI as a source of ideas. We never fully rely on it. It could be a possible behavior. Or it's something such as, we use AI for this context, not for this other context. Or we always double check with our database. Or for pricing, you should never make modifications on pricing yourself. You should always call John. Whatever it's your desired behavior, you tell them.
Yes.
And this way, you make sure that when they will face this problem on the job, they will actually do the right thing.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting. There's this phrase that people use, often wrong, but never in doubt. And sometimes it seems like that AI, obviously the way it presents its answers to you, it presents it in a very assured manner. And obviously, you're just talking to a computer program here. And I think that's one thing that I think people have to wrestle with a little bit, is that how can I avoid AI actually making me dumber because I'm relying on it too much?
Yeah, I think that you cover a good problem, which is, what if you stop thinking?
Yes.
And the idea, it's exactly like, we use AI not to do the job for us, and then you say the exact use case. It could be like just as a source of idea,
yes,
but never as the sole source of ideas, or as a sounding board, but never to make the decisions for us.
Yes.
You want to usually explain with this framework, we use it for this, but not for that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's really great. All right. Hope you're enjoying my conversation with Luca. Quick break to talk about my book, Construction Genius. I tell you, this book is so good because it's simple, it's effective, it's practical, it's no nonsense, there's no BS in it. It's all about helping you to be a better leader, helping your leaders to be better leaders, helping you to excel in terms of sales and marketing and in strategy. And it's all in one package, $19.99. It's interesting. I have CEOs of tremendously large construction companies read it, and they just say, Eric, thank you for the simplicity, the direct approach, and the applicability of the information. So I want you to go out to Amazon and purchase yourself a copy of the book. It's $19.99. In fact, get a copy for everyone in your organization who's in leadership. If you buy 10 or more copies, contact me directly at eric@constructiongenius.com, and we can schedule in a no-charge 1-hour debrief on the book and a bonus leadership training session. I would normally charge $3,500 for that hour. I'll do it for you at no charge, and all you have to do is buy 10 or more books on Amazon. So go out there. They're $19.99 each. It's a killer deal. It's a tremendous book. I know you'll benefit. And now let's get back to the conversation with Luca. How should construction leaders think about AI in terms of future-proofing their workforce? So what kind of skills should they help their people build today to stay competitive tomorrow?
Well, I think that we covered today some of the most important skills, which are, one, prompting.
Yes.
That's probably going to be, to stay relevant for the next centuries, kind of like delegation has been relevant for the last few centuries. That's exactly the same skill.
Yes.
Second thing is how to train others to use AI.
Yes.
And so basically covering what we just, the hypotheticals and what we discussed today, I think these are the two main things. Third thing is to exchange ideas on how you're using AI. I think that this is super important.
Yep.
Within the company, because most likely in the company, you will have some employees which are better at discovering use cases, at discovering prompt, and you have others which are more reactive. And you want them to talk to each other, but also across companies. And across company, I don't necessarily mean your competitors, but maybe let's say that you have your purchasing department and you have a friend which owns a company in a different sector, but also has a purchasing department. Why don't you exchange ways in which your purchasing departments are using AI, for example?
Yeah. So let me just give another scenario here and just walk you through it. Because, we've talked about how it can help you in terms of doing the pre-mortems for building a project, for putting a proposal together. But let's say you have a change order that you need to negotiate with a client. and you want to prepare for that negotiation, and you want to scenario out the various kinds of situations. Let's say I'm asking for a $100,000 change order. The client comes back and says, there's no way I'm paying you that. I'll give you 50,000. How do I handle that negotiation? One of the ways to really use AI in that sense, or in that situation, is to think about books on negotiation. So there's one that's called Never Split the Difference. That's one of the most famous books. And what you would want to do in that situation is, in the prompt, you say, I want you to look at this situation from the perspective of the principles taught in this book. Prepare for me a series of questions that I can ask, or even a role play that I can do prior to the negotiation to prepare me for that negotiation. And so you can use AI in that way. Is that something that you think would be useful for people?
Yeah, this is a great example. I'm using it myself, for parts that are not core of my job. Like, I'm definitely not asking them to write books in the tone of people. But for example, I've been using it in the past when I had to write a complaint letter, some legal communication. I've asked, for example, there is a person which I suggested everyone to follow on Twitter, which is called Patrick McKinsey, writes about having this type of escalation communications. And you can ask AI to write this letter for you in the style of Patrick McKinsey, for example. And the results are relatively good. Interestingly, you can also do it with internal people.
Yes.
So if you have a person which is very good at, writing proposals or writing letters, you can take some of these letters and proposals and saying, AI, here are some examples, and so on. So definitely use this type of reference.
It's key here to really be thinking creatively. The more creative you are, you could almost say this, the more human you are in the way that you use AI, the more beneficial AI will be to you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love that. And one more thing is, if you don't know how to use AI, ask AI how you can use it.
Yes.
This is something underrated. Sometimes we don't think about it, but that's a fantastic use case for AI, to ask how it can help.
And so another way that you can use it, and this is what I would recommend, is if you're doing a meeting with someone and you're taking a bunch of notes and perhaps you're typing in those notes, you can take those notes and you can ask AI to give you a summary of the meeting with the key takeaways. And it can, again, be a tremendously efficient way for you to spend time, because instead of spending an hour or two trying to summarize a meeting, you could probably spend about 5 or 10 minutes with a few prompts and a good set of notes and get a really excellent summary that you can then share with the team.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't do that blindly. So just ask AI and then copy paste the result.
Yep.
But it's a fantastic way. If you ask AI to produce the summary and then you go through the summary, and you think, and you add the one or two things that might be missing, you will have a result which is almost the same as the one you would have produced by yourself, but maybe in 30% of the time.
Yeah, and so that's the thing, is that you always want to be checking the results that AI gives you back. You can't just blindly copy and paste it, because you're going to look like an idiot. So this is excellent. So, Luca, what I'd like you to do is, can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do and how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my work for the last 12 years, I've been a business consultant, independent. I work by myself, and I'm training leaders on everything that has to do with managing people. So I'm training leaders on developing their teams, on training their people fast, on improving delegation skills, and things of the like. I've also written quite a few books that you can find on Amazon, and you can find me through my website, which is luca-dellanna.com with double L and double N. luca-dellanna.com with double L and double N.
That's excellent. Now, I know you're in Italy. What city are you in?
I'm in Turin.
Turin, okay.
Yeah, but most of my clients are Americans, actually.
Are they? Yeah, that's cool. Okay. But if I'm in Turin, what's the one restaurant I need to go to?
Oh, it's going to be Plin e Tajarin.
Okay, how do you spell that?
It's Plina, and then Tajarin, it's Tajarin.
Okay, yeah. So Talin?
Tajarin.
Okay, yeah. I got it.
But you need book in advance, but it's completely worth it.
Yes.
And if you're not sure about how to book because they speak Italian, you just send me an email and I will be glad to help because it's worth it.
Excellent. Okay, I just pulled it up. We'll have a link in the show notes. So if you're ever in Turin, you got to hit up that restaurant. Luca, I really appreciate you joining us. I'd love to have you back on the show to dive deeper into some of the stuff that you do. But this conversation about AI, I know is tremendously helpful for my audience. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Eric, and gladly to come back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to my interview today with Luca. Feel free to check out his website at luca-dellanna.com. Connect with him on X. He's tremendous on X, by the way. And also check out that restaurant. We're going to have a link in the show notes to the restaurant in Turin. So if you're ever in Turin, you got to book a spot there. It's going to be absolutely awesome. All right. Thanks for listening. Share the interview with other people who you think would benefit from the discussion around AI. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.